And hello and welcome again to Avitar Face to Face. I'm your host for today, Kinch-Thomas, and as always, we love to bring you information and hopefully inspire you with some of the arts and culture that's happening in Westchester and beyond. So thank you for joining us today. We want to welcome to the show Alexander McCabe. He is a saxophonist, he's a composer, he's a pianist, and wow, what a resume he has. Well, let me tell you that he was the featured soloist with the Ray Charles Orchestra and was an original member and toured with the Chico O'Farrill Afro-Cuban Big Band. He's played with some of the greats, from George Coleman to Harold Mayburn, Mario Bauza, and the Pointer Sisters. I love the Pointer Sisters. And on top of all of that, his compositions can be heard in so many films and shows and commercials, from Breaking Bad to Nurse Jackie, MTV's Real World, and he's also performed on the James Bond film Tomorrow Never Dies. And as we're speaking, you're listening right now to an original composition of his called Tiptoe, and it's from HBO's Bored to Death. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Thank you, Jewel.
Wonderful to have you here.
Great to be here. Thank you.
All right, terrific. Let's just start right out with finding out where your passion for music came from.
That's easy. It's my parents and my older brothers and sisters were jazz fans. My father was a big classical music fan and jazz fan. So it was always music and arts in general around the house. But I was listening to Charlie Parker when I was 10 years old, thanks mostly to my older brothers and my father. So starting then, I just got into it from there.
That was it. And when did you realize that it was going to be your life's passion?
Well, to be professional, not till the end of high school. It was always going to be a passion, but not necessarily profession until I decided to go to college for major in music.
Okay. So you live in New Rochelle right now,
yes,
but this is by way of Boston. This is where you came from?
Boston, then New York. So I was in the city for a long time.
Okay.
I moved here when I was 19.
And what brought you to New York?
Well, this is, the jazz capital of the world.
Yes, indeed.
So I wanted to go to a school that was in New York, and I ended up graduating from NYU, and I was able to study with all these great musicians like George Coleman.
Right.
Others,
Okay. Fantastic. And so you came to New York in the 80s and immediately jumped into the jazz world.
Yeah, it was a lot different back then. There were a lot more little places to play. It was just sort of easier to get around musically.
Right.
And also there was all the guys who created the music originally in the 50s and 60s and 40s. They're still around.
They were there, yeah.
So you could go into a club or just a casual jam session. There's Woody Shaw or Junior Cook and Tommy Flanagan, Joe Henderson. It was amazing.
Oh my God!
So that's a good vacation.
Yeah, how spectacular is that as a young musician to be in the presence of and experiencing the music with and through these
it's a whole
icons.
Different thing when you actually meet these guys in person, and I'm lucky enough to play with them sometimes too.
Oh my gracious! Okay, is there any one person that stands out for you as just inspiration?
I was really, and still am, into the way George Coleman played straight ahead jazz. So I sought him out when I came down. Okay. I remember going up to him in the Vanguard, and he was very nice, and so I studied with him and some other guys as well. And he was so open, I sat in with him at the Sweet Basil's and the Village Vanguard. I was 19, So.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know if I'd let a 19-year-old sing.
I think that's one of the things that was so beautiful about that period is the interaction of the masters, what we consider now the elder masters, with the young up and coming, just trying to get out there and play.
Yeah,
the
they
music.
would let. Looking back, they were off. They were really nice about it,
Right.
And I sat in with Art Blakey, and it's very, it's like.
That's amazing.
Nowadays, it's not really like that so much. There's great things going on now. It's just slightly different. Like people, the sort of sitting in jam session-y side of it was more prevalent back then.
Okay. So you toured after you hit New York and had been on the scene for a while. You started touring, and I mentioned some of the fabulous people that you toured with throughout Europe and beyond.
Yeah, I did some of my own things there, and I lived in England for a minute and toured with a guy there. But mostly Ray Charles is the guy who, the bigger name from that period.
Right.
The late 80s, I was on the road with him for a while.
Okay. All right. And how was that?
Oh, it was great. I mean, it was Ray Charles.
How was it touring with Ray Charles?
It was amazing. You know, he was like sitting not much farther away from you because we're in the sax section, and
Okay.
coming on stage the first time with him was pretty amazing.
I must say that must have been some experience. So so you toured for a number of years, and then you came back to New York.
Yeah, I was, you know, in and out of New York. I went to Europe a few times.
Right.
And then eventually moved up here, and I started teaching a lot more, which I wasn't so fond of when I was younger, but I like it a lot now. I'm
Okay.
getting older.
Okay.
You
You
know,
want to pass on that wisdom.
going back to like those guys in the 80s, they would, you know,
Yeah.
they would. So now I do a lot of teaching now,
Okay.
less touring.
And mentoring.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, try to
Okay.
anyway.
Fabulous. Okay. And so you came back, started doing some teaching, but you also formed a band for a little while that was pretty infamous
Which one is
back in
that?
the 90s. The ska band.
Oh, Memphis.
Yeah, I know. We're not going to talk about it too much, but yes.
Memphis Scoffleys, they're still around in some form, but they were very popular. Sold a lot of
Back
CDs.
then, yes. Yeah.
And we did the that was when we did the James Bond film. That was the we were playing on that soundtrack.
On that-
was the
oh,
horn
okay.
section from Memphis Scoffleys.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that was something different.
And how long were you part of that band?
I guess about 5 years. I did some writing for them for their couple of CDs they made.
Okay. So, what gives you the greatest pleasure? You're a composer and you're a musician. I know you've worked with a lot of small ensembles. You've worked with orchestras. Is it the playing that gives you the greatest pleasure, or the composing?
Playing, but then playing the things I've composed.
Okay.
You know, it's like,
All right.
that's nice. I mean, I'm doing this project right now. This thing, I'm combining a jazz rhythm section with 4 classical wind instruments.
Uh-huh.
I've been rehearsing that, and you're working really hard on that, and hearing that come to life is pretty cool.
Yeah, I must say.
But playing jazz, playing straight ahead jazz, you know, that's what I grew up doing, and I guess I'd have to say that's where I'm most comfortable.
Okay. All right. So, in your composing, is it what's your process, particularly if you're working on a film? Or
Well, that's very different from writing music for like a jazz quartet,
Right.
because it's just us. You know,
Yeah.
when you're working with a piece of film or footage, it's a whole nother way of creating, because you know it's almost like another band member. You have to work with what you're looking at. You know, you
Right.
can't overwhelm it. You can't. You know, it could be just one note. You know,
Okay.
you can go anywhere. And it's also really subjective. So I like it in that terms, because you have such a wide palette. Almost anything could work. You
Okay.
know, as long as you do it well.
Okay.
Right?
So, are you taking, of course, direction from the director, in terms of feel or ambiance,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
just
So
texture?
sometimes they'll say, you know, I want a piano here. And
Okay.
sometimes they'll say, do whatever you want. Well, you know, it's like here's a scene, here's a situation. I pop it up on the computer and I create stuff to it.
Okay. And composing for the TV shows like Breaking Bad or Nurse Jackie, does that have a different element?
Yeah,
to
I mean
it?
those were more sort of matching a background music to a scene, like an ambiance thing, like a piano.
okay.
Like the Tiptoe you heard was sort of like you and I are in a bar and that's playing in the
And it's
background,
just-
as
yeah.
opposed to like a score where you're dramatically underscoring exactly what's going on. It's sort of,
Okay.
there's a distinction there.
Okay. And in terms of time that it takes you to work on and complete a score versus an ambiance piece, then?
You know, my writing in all styles, it's like, I guess it comes from being an improviser. It's like whatever I sit down and do right away is usually what works. When I find myself working on something for days, hours and hours and days, usually it's like, you know what, this isn't working. Let's try something else.
Okay. So I met you a few Sundays ago.
Yes.
When my husband, you invited my husband, who
Greg.
Greg, was the jazz columnist for the New York Daily News, and you invited him over to your house for a Sunday brunch.
Yes.
And I must thank your wife Melissa because because that Cuban cuisine was just fabulous. I mean, we really enjoyed it. But you had a band there.
Yeah.
And we were so blessed to be able to, after we ate, just sit in your living room and experience the band. Tell us a little bit about this band and,
Well,
and
this
what you're doing.
particular outfit is, again, George Coleman, the great tenor player. And I'm good friends with his son, George Coleman Jr., who's also an excellent jazz drummer.
Right.
And we've been talking for years about coming up and having some Cuban food because George loves it, you know. So last year he finally came up, and at the last minute we were like, hey, you want to play? He's like, sure. So I just called a couple of guys. I called Paul O'Day and Chris Haney, and they came over and played. George loved it, and he just wanted to keep doing it. So like every 3 weeks or so, we get together and play, eat Cuban food and play. And, you know, it's taken on its own little form here. We did one gig. We've gone into the studio, recorded a CD's worth of music. That was just recently, so I'm not sure. It's going to be released, but I'm not sure on what label. That's up to George and George.
Okay. Okay.
But that's how it came about.
So, are there plans to make this a formal band and
well,
do more work?
Yeah, but we're not quite there yet.
Okay.
We've made the CD, and the next step is to do a gig. I'd love to do a gig up here.
Okay. That would be terrific to have to start.
But that's
that's
up to those guys. You know, it's like to George and George. It's like, okay, guys, whatever you want.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about working with George Coleman, because, you know, as you said, I mean, he's an icon. In the music, and you can just see, as an elder sitting at the head of the table, you know, the stories that he started to tell. You know, they were fabulous and informative. And of course, always with wisdom, as our elders have to offer us. How has it been, and how many years have you been working with him?
Working with him just this last year. You know, I was a student before, you know, and then we'd stay in touch. I'd go to his gigs and check him out, and say hi and stuff. But only recently have we actually gone playing in like a band, and it's been great. I mean, you know, he does everything off the top of his head, and you have to be ready. Because if you don't know the song, you better go learn it for the next time. He's still like that, very old school, I guess. You know, it's like, better know your material.
Absolutely, or off the bandstand.
Exactly.
Or out of the living room.
Out of the living room, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, you know, it was a fabulous experience. We really enjoyed ourselves, and we would love to come back as you guys are progressing and just building, you know, your repertoire. And
I think when the recording comes out, there'll be some gigs, some public performances that'll be tied in with that. So.
Okay. Fantastic. So now, tell me a little bit about your love for jazz, and what it brings to you as a musician.
I guess to me, it's just been such a big part of my life since I was 10 years old that it's sort of hard to say. You know, it's like it's like. Tell me about your right hand. You know? It's necessary.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So and in terms of gigs that you have been in recently, where have you found yourself heading in terms of the music?
I guess I'm just always trying to be yourself. You know, it's just like trying to create new things. Without imitating, it's hard because there's so many great players out there, you know. I'm just trying to constantly evolve, trying to keep coming up with original things, writing original music. Playing with younger players is always inspiring, you know. Just getting the next wave, the next rush of interest kicks you in the behind a little bit. Okay, start creating. That it's interesting that you talked about getting inspiration from younger artists. One of the things I was going to ask you about was, where does some of the inspiration come from to create, to even start putting down those notes on the page? I guess you have to come up with some sort of project. Like, I'm going to create a suite of songs like this, or I'm going to get a gig and write 4 original songs for it. Because you need some sort of goal. I'm not someone who can just sit down and say, let me just write something for the heck of it. You know, I need some kind of, it can be anything though. It can be a lot of different things, even just for a jam session or something. Right.
And does the music come to you at different times? I mean, you could be anywhere and you'll hear,
get things stuck in your head, and you quickly get to a piano and figure it out.
All right. I often wonder, the creative process is such a powerful one, and it's such individual process. I'm always curious about how artists, get that first step and then move into the work.
Yeah, I'm curious of that too. I wonder how they did it. Because I just sit down at the piano and that's where it starts usually.
Okay.
So I usually don't write songs on the saxophone, rarely.
Okay. All right.
It's mostly just a keyboard thing for me.
Cool.
But sometimes you can stare at there for a long time and nothing happens.
And then you need to walk away and come back and then be blessed.
Yeah, sometimes you got to kind of force it. Just write a melody and I'm going to force myself to write a song, whether it's good or bad.
Okay. All right. Well, you're going to play something for us
yes,
today.
That is an original, yes.
Okay. So, and the name of this is?
I named this for my wife. This is called Miss Maritza.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful.
And this is one of the songs that we recorded with Big George recently in the studio, which was great having him play on that. So we'll give you a version today.
All right. And the musician who's going to be accompanying you?
It's Paul O'Day, who you met over at my house.
Okay.
He plays with the George Coleman, what are we going to call it? George Coleman Quintet or whatever it is.
All right. All right. So
and he's a great pianist. I work a lot with him.
Okay. So you and Paul are going to share Miss Maritza?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay, that was fabulous. I'm sure your wife was just mesmerized by that. What was her response when you first wrote the tune?
Well, I was playing it on the piano, and she goes, "What's that?" And I said, "That's an original." She goes, "I like that." So she doesn't always do that. So
okay. All right. So it became her tune.
yes, exactly.
Fantastic, wonderful. So now, as a leader, you have created 3 CDs.
3 CDs. Right.
Okay, 2 of which I'm holding in
Actually,
my.
no, this is CD number 4. I'm a co-leader on that.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So this one I'm holding is Quiz.
Quiz, yes.
And this was from 2010.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And everything I read about this was fabulous. I mean, they talked about how accomplished this CD was, and how assured and just musicianship. It was great.
We got good reviews.
Yeah. Okay. And who's with you on this?
That's
particular?
Ori Kane, a great pianist and composer as well. Ugano Kegwo, bass player that I've worked a lot with, and 2 drummers. Was actually comprised of 2 sessions. So I got 2 great drummers, Greg Hutchinson and Rudy Royston.
Okay. All right, fabulous. And this, as you said, as the 4th one.
Yeah.
And the most recent.
Well, that wouldn't be a leader. I wouldn't call myself a leader on that one. That's a group effort. That's one of it's a live recording from 2 years ago, Charlie Parker's 90th birthday, Bird's birthday concert. It's called. And so it was me and fellow Westchesterite Andrew Beals, very good alto player, plus John Burr on bass, Steve Johns on drums. I'm missing something. Oh, John Hart, great guitar player and guitar.
Okay.
And also 14-year-old Daryl Johns sits in for a song, who's this Steve Johns' whiz kid son bass player.
Wow. Wow. Okay. 14.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah. That's what we need to get him at that age. So, but this was produced by Mark Morganelli, is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So our resident Westchester Jazz Festival and producer.
Mark's great. I mean, he puts on so many things in Westchester. There's constantly concerts going on through the summer.
Right.
And we're going to do, I guess it's a CD release. This CD came out this spring, so we're having a concert with the same band on Charlie Parker's birthday this month, which is August 29th.
Okay. And that's going to be held where?
At the Lyndhurst Estate in Tarrytown.
Okay.
Big mansion on Broadway.
All right.
And so I think it's 7 o'clock. I have to check my website.
So is there, I was just going to say, is there a place where people can go to find out the exact address and times?
Yeah. Well, my website is amccabemusic.com.
Okay.
Or you can just go to Facebook and like my Alexander McCabe music page, and then I send out. I don't inundate people with emails, but I do send out the occasional.
Okay. Yeah. All right, fine. So that's Bird's Birthday Bash, August 29th at the Lyndhurst Estate in Tarrytown.
Yes.
That's one of several things that you've got coming up. Now, I know that you did a gig at Alvin's and Friends.
Well, we did. I've been playing there every Friday, and I've been playing with Paul. And just duo. It's really been fun. Alvin's great. You know, he's a jazz-loving restaurant owner. You gotta love that. Yeah. And we're playing there every Friday for the foreseeable future, I think. So
and we should
come on down.
Okay, fantastic. We should let people know that Alvin and Friends is in New Rochelle.
In New Rochelle.
On Memorial Highway.
Memorial Highway.
Because this is the new establishment, and it's gorgeous.
No, it's beautiful.
I've been there.
He took over the space that used to be Mariano Rivera's place, the picture.
Right.
Which is a huge, beautiful place. It's much nicer now, though.
Okay. So every Friday at what time?
7:30 to 10 o'clock.
7:30 to 10 o'clock. You and Paul, will be there. So
yes.
they'll be able to experience more of the fabulous music that you just played for us.
I hope so, yeah.
Okay. All right. And what else have you got coming up? You mentioned something about George Coleman.
Yeah, well, the George Coleman Octet is a group that he had back in the 70s and 80s.
Okay.
With lots of great musicians. And he's doing it again, December 5th through 11th in December. It's a little down the road, but
that's okay.
Never too early to start.
That's right. People can start making their plans now.
And you'll need a reservation because this will be a big deal. I think he's going to be with George and I think Harold Mayburn and probably Eric Alexander. And,
wow.
It's going to be a pretty. I'll need my Wheaties for that.
Okay. And this is good. Do you know where it's going to be held?
At the Jazz Standard, yeah.
Jazz Standard.
Yeah.
Okay. Love the club.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice spot to really have a great evening of music.
Yeah. So it's going to be 5 nights. So it'll be pretty pretty awesome, as they say.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. All right. Well, give your website address again so folks can write that down.
McCabe Music, so it's AMCCABE music.com.
Okay.
And also my Facebook page, Alexander McCabe Music. Just like that. And they'll be updated occasionally.
All right. And you mentioned that you've been doing more and more composing in terms of the films, and since you've been in Westchester, and the technology has given you the opportunity to just compose more. Is there anything coming up that you want to share with folks?
There's nothing right now. No.
Okay.
There will
be.
There will be. Oh yeah.
All right. Alex, it has been wonderful to have you on the show. We appreciate the music and the energy and the creativity, and we look forward to seeing you in some of these engagements around Westchester and the big one coming up in New York at Jazz Standard in December. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here.
It was fun.
Okay. And we thank you for joining us for this episode of Avitar Face to Face. We hope that you will go out and enjoy the arts and culture that is around you and all of the artists that are bringing us some fabulous work and creations. And until we see you next time, stay well and be as creative as you want to be. Take care.